Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the CSINC and Alumni UBC, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you in attendance today. We appreciate you being here and to participate in this exciting talk with one of our alumni, Forrest Kong. Before we get started, I would just like to acknowledge that UBC is situated on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. My name is Paige Ferlin, and I am a fifth-year student here at UBC studying philosophy and creative writing. I am a member of the Student Alumni Council with Alumni UBC, and they are a student leadership program aimed at fostering campus pride and connecting students with alumni. Follow us on all our social media platforms at UBCSAC.
Hi everyone, I'm Jerome. I'm in my fourth year of political science here at UBC. I'm also with the Student Alumni Council. I focus a lot of my work on campus engagement and will be moderating today's office hour. At Alumni UBC and CSINC, we really understand the value of mentorship and community, particularly right now. So we're hoping to use these virtual office hours as a tool to help you guys first years address your fears, make connections, expand your community, and be mentored in a safe and small group setting by UBC alumni like Forrest today. As you may know, CSINC supports students through your academic journey by connecting you to experiences, resources, and people that will help you achieve your personal and career goals. We do this through a variety of programming, including orientations, so like Jumpstart, which some of you have done, mentoring, volunteer, leadership opportunities, and other workplace learning. You guys can visit students.ubc.ca to learn more about the center and its services.
So today's Alumni Office Hour is a partnership with the UBC Hub of 10,000 Coffees and is sponsored by RBC as part of their future launch campaign. With 10,000 Coffees, students can connect with this network of over 3,000 other students and alumni to develop their skills and build their network. Jerome, Forrest, and I are also on 10,000 Coffees, so feel free to search us up after and say hi. This event will also be recorded through the GoToWebinar, which we're on right now, and the video will be available after the event. All participants are muted during the duration of this event, so you will have a Q&A period opportunity in the second half of today's event. Some of you have already sent us your questions, and I will make sure to get to those, and Jerome as well, throughout our Q&A period. If you have not sent your questions to us yet, you will have two methods of asking questions during today's event.
Yeah, so you're welcome to type in your questions at any point during the presentation in the questions tab, and I'll present them to Forrest in our Q&A portion. Your questions will remain anonymous if they're typed in. If you want, you can also use your microphone to ask questions in our Q&A. So just make sure you hit the raised hand button at the bottom of your webinar page, and I'll unmute you. Keep your questions short and concise, and it'll provide us with an opportunity to answer more of your questions and have a really good discussion today. So now I'm happy to introduce today's speaker, Forrest Kong. He's graduated from UBC with a combined major in economics and statistics and a minor in commerce in 2018. He's currently working in Vancouver as an actuarial scientist for Hub International. In his talk, Forrest is going to share a story about his experience as a first-year student at UBC and the lessons that he learned to become useful, that were useful for his career and his life after university. So I'll give the floor to Forrest.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'll make it a really quick introduction. Good evening, everyone. My name is Forrest. Jerome, thank you for making a really great introduction. I am a recent UBC alumni, graduating in 2018, and a fellow art student. So I'm currently working as an actuarial analyst for this insurance brokerage, and essentially I get to predict the future for a bunch of different clients ranging from the public sector to the private sector. But mainly what I'm here to talk about is my advice and kind of my journey throughout my university experiences, and hopefully to give you some tidbits about how to survive first year, but also make the best use out of it, especially during the times of this pandemic. Sorry, Paige and Jerome, can you guys hear me?
Hi, yes, we can.
Awesome.
So I was just wondering, so thank you very much. And I was just wondering if you could elaborate a bit more when it came to your experience at UBC, if you could elaborate more as the clubs that you worked with and how you really got involved on campus.
Yeah, for sure. So prior to coming to UBC, I wanted to make sure that I wanted to leave a legacy. So One of the driving factors about making the best use of my education was the fact that UBC or just university in general was super expensive. And so my mentality is kind of like a buffet. If I'm going to pay $30 for something, then I'm going to make sure I make the best use of my $30. But obviously with university and those type of costs, I want to make sure that everything that I do was just more than participating in lectures. I really do want to leave an imprint and have some sort of impact within what I do within university. And so when I got into UC and started off during my first year, what I thought about was what are some organizations that I could be a part of that I could leave some sort of legacy or try to better improve the livelihood or even just like the overall student experiences. And so what led me to that was participating with the Arts Undergraduate Society. And so one of the cool things about being part of the AUS was that you get to, as part of the student governing body, you're representing over 12,000 students, and it's especially because the faculty a lot of diverse perspectives and there's a lot of different needs that people want to address. And I thought for a high school student that didn't really put myself out there, the best way to leave an imprint was to just kind of go to the deep end and be part of that. So I actually got a chance to run as a first year representative. During the year, there's around 17 other candidates or so, and so I was really putting myself out of my comfort zone. But through that experience, I got to learn from all these different stories. I got to reach out and talk to some really interesting people, and I really got to understand why people are in this particular faculty. And so that kind of inspired me to get involved in student politics, but and just focus on enhancing student experiences. So I got involved with the AUS in my first year. I then participated with UBC Jumpstart. So I was an orientation leader for just welcoming new international students into the UBC campus. And then one of my coolest experiences was when I got into my major with an economics degree for the Vancouver School of Economics. They were just starting an undergraduate society. And so I thought that was an awesome opportunity for me to create that legacy by running as a representative and voicing the opinions of art students within that council. And I guess that drive and that passion led me to become the president for the 2017 and 2018 year. So a lot of student politics, a lot of orientation work, and a couple of opportunities working with the Center for Student Involvement and Careers, and that was kind of my realm when I was as a UBC student.
More on those work experiences and what you were able to do alongside the student government stuff in school.
Yeah. So another aspect of going back to my buffet analysis example of just trying to make the most out of my education, I also wanted to make money as well, and I also needed work experience because it's one thing to know your theories about supply and demand, but it's another thing to actually apply it. And so for me to grow as a professional, I really wanted work experience, and one of the avenues I took was the arts co-op program. So I got into the program during my second year, and throughout the time I got a co-op position working for the Center for Student Involvement and Careers. And so I was a art student assistant, which is a glorified term for event planner, program manager kind of role. So it was quite awesome for me to handle that kind of work. And it taught me all the basics, like how to communicate in a professional manner, how to send an email, which I was absolutely terrified of. It was just a roadblock in my particular brain, but just also how to deal with handling different timelines and expectations to come up with a particular program. And so some of the cool things that we did, I got to interview a whole bunch of students who wanted to become orientation leaders. So I got to interview like thousands of students, which is really cool. I got to scan through arts internship program students, those who want to be part of the program. And I also got to run an event, the Dean's Leadership Awards. So just highlighting graduating students who have left an impact. And so that co-op experience as a whole taught me all the fundamentals on how to present myself and how to deal with different challenges and my work ethic, and that I would definitely say that was a big chunk of how I'm leading to where I'm working today. But another thing I wanted to emphasize is that there are a lot of other opportunities that you can get for work experiences. So I know some students, they do that through research opportunities, working with professors. But for me, my another avenue that I took specifically was work learn. So work learn was a really good opportunity where you get to work as a part-time, so you can still do your education, you can still take courses, but you can also work at the same time, and it's also on campus. And so that was another avenue for me where I got to gain some work experience. And that work learn position, I worked at Irving K. Barber, and I was just scanning items, and I was just directing people to different libraries. But it was really cool to work in an environment where I considered home during my first year, which was Irving K. Barber. So I definitely took a lot of opportunities working within campus through those particular programs.
So if someone is now watching, let's say, and they want to follow in your footsteps, to us as mature students at UBC, we have an understanding of how to take advantage of these opportunities. But if you think back to your first year self, how would you direct yourself in person or virtually to take advantage of the opportunities you did, such as the Arts Undergraduate Society, the co-op? Are there places on campus that you can go to for these resources?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's an interesting question just because of the times, right? Like I can only speak on based on my experiences where I actually got to be in the physical campus, where it was just so much easier to access that kind of information, where Brock Hall was a really good resource where I could go in and talk to all these different advisors, and they could tell me about certain programs that UBC has to offer. When going to Buchanan, for example, for the arts co-op program, just physically going to their office and asking them questions to learn more about what they have to offer, what the application process is like. So I know it's a little tricky because obviously it's not as easy to go to on campus as well. So I guess if I was to be put in my situation right now, the first thing I would definitely do is just go onto the websites and Google around trying to find what kind of opportunities are out there. Definitely reaching out to my peers who are older than me who have gone through the process. It's easier that way because they then direct me to the actual sources that I should probably look at. And obviously talking to program directors and representatives who can really give me insight as to what's out there. And I think with going to, let's say, UBC clubs or organizations like the Arts Undergraduate Society or the Vancouver School of Economics Undergraduate Societies, those ones are a little bit more accessible because I don't know if they still do Facebook nowadays, but I'm pretty sure there's other online platforms where we could directly reach out to student-led organizations, right? And so I feel like those ones are just a little easier to reach out to as well. So yes, we don't have the physical space to do it, but it's so much easier with the online platform because it does feel like it's kind of like they're operating 24/7 in that. And so the key message is just to send a message and just asking questions, and you never know what happens after that.
For sure. And are there any online platforms that you've used as well, such as LinkedIn, that could possibly help, especially being a first year student looking for connections? Do you have any tips as someone that has entered into the work world, how to connect with people virtually outside of the UBC community, but talking to people that have possibly graduated from UBC or work within UBC?
Oh yeah, for sure. So LinkedIn is definitely a really big platform that I wish I took more advantage of during my university career. It's such yeah, I think when I was in my second year, I just got so worried about just sending people messages just because I feel like they don't really care about the second year student and just kind of wasting their time. And I probably don't have anything insightful to say except for please hire me or spread your wisdom and whatnot. But that's the whole purpose of LinkedIn, though. LinkedIn is a platform where people are not only just kind of boasting about their accomplishments or what their career opportunities are at, but it's also just showcasing for the sake of like inspiring other people to learn more about their industry or to seek out opportunities. So it's encouraged. I mean, for me, being on the other side, like I actually get pretty giddy when someone messages me and asks about my opportunities, because the secret is a lot of people, they do like talking about themselves, and especially when you get to, especially when you bring up LinkedIn, I think that's a really easy platform for you to say, hey, I saw on your LinkedIn profile and you had all these accomplishments. I would love to learn more about it. And so putting that in the perspective of like student-led organizations like AUS or whatever, that's the easiest way to reach out to them, whether it's like maybe it's like a Facebook message or maybe it's an email and just saying like, hey, I know you're the president of this. I know you did some pretty cool opportunities. I would love to learn more about it. And I think if people start letting go of that fear, because the worst case scenario is if they don't respond, they don't respond. But if they do, then that's something that you can kind of work with. And I think especially during these times of COVID, like this is going to be one of the few direct avenues that you should definitely take advantage of for sure. So yeah, LinkedIn is a platform that I wish I used more, but I'm using a lot more now. And then 10,000 Coffee, I think you two had mentioned it before. It's a new platform that I looked into, and I thought it was quite interesting, where it not only talks about your profile in terms of whether you're a student or alumni, but also mentions what you're looking for and what you could provide to other people. And so it's a really cool tool where it can match those who are seeking advice to someone who wants to give advice. And so I've only been on for about like a couple days now, but it's really cool to see all these different backgrounds and different needs and wants. And it's also awesome for the emails to be received where it's saying like, hey, this might be a good match, you should definitely reach out to them. So I'm definitely going to be looking to that more, and especially because we're hiring, so if anybody's interested, if you're graduating pretty soon, but this is definitely a platform that I'll be using a lot, and especially during COVID times, you definitely need to take advantage of LinkedIn and other online platforms.
Yeah, so sort of going off that networking point, obviously you've been really successful in making all those connections, but when it came the time for your actual job interviews, especially with your job now, and with your co-op jobs, how did you sort of characterize your student leadership experience, and how did you help that translate into a workplace interview?
Oh, that's a great question, Jerome. I think, yeah. So I guess before I answer that, maybe just to kind of give a background as to like why I'm in the industry I'm in right now. So I all started in high school, where I just took like this weird survey for our courses, and it told me that I should look into the actuarial industry. Maybe that's something that I might be interested in. And so my career path was a little bit more linear in the sense that you just have to check off these boxes, and if you have these boxes, then you're able to get the job. And so my understanding was, okay, I'm going to get to UBC. I need some sort of degree that involves econ, stats, or just show that I'm a math geek. I need to highlight all of that kind of stuff. And then I also needed these exams that I have to pass. But the one thing that was challenging was, especially nowadays in this day and age, I like to think that everyone's getting smarter. That's my hope. Just with access to education and information, it's just so much easier for people to gain knowledge. And so it's so much easier to say, hey, I got X% average or whatever. So as a result of that, people started becoming homogenous. And especially with this industry where we're looking for talent, and it's we're trying to be very selective of these individuals that want to be part of our team. We're now looking for well-rounded people. And so it's not just enough to say you have like a really good education, because I think that's a given now. So now that you're a UBC student, it's given that you have some sort of academic talent or academic background, and you're able to at least look at a book or whatnot. But the question is, now that you're amongst the 50,000 students, what makes you stand out from everybody else? And what I found that a lot of these professionals are looking for is adaptability. And so within my work experience, working with the undergraduate societies, working in Urban K Barber, and even my event planning role with CSI&C, none of it has to do with insurance. None of it has to do with statistics or any of that kind of stuff. And so going back to your question, Jerome, like how do I take my leadership and translate that? I was emphasizing on the adaptability piece. And so during my interviews, I brought up a lot of life stories where I was dealt with so many different problems and back was against the wall, and really trying to figure out how to find a particular solution and how to deal with it. And I think, and the interesting part about those kind of interviews was they never mentioned about my experience in insurance. They never mentioned my experiences with like spreadsheets or whatnot. They only cared about, I guess, A, who I am as a person, and then B, how I deal with problems. So it was like soft skills. I think that was something that they really emphasized on. So with my leadership experience, I emphasized on my communication skills. I talked about just being able to take big projects and trying to manage them the best way I can. But I think the key thing I wanted to bring up was, again, that adaptability. And why I want to say that is because of what's happening right now with the pandemic. All the first years and second years and everybody who's in UBC right now, everyone has dealt with this really interesting circumstance that we never see before, where we're forced to work under the constraints of our own bedrooms. And so all the luxury that I got in terms of like mobility and moving around and exploring and that human touch that we usually operate in, you don't have that anymore. So like all those physical networking events or all the event planning, if you were like an executive of a club, you can't really do that anymore, right? Like all the skills that you get from like contacting other people, is not really the same as what it is now. But with that being said, this is also an opportunity for us to figure out how to be adaptable, how to problem solve. And so if I was a first year student right now and I'm trying to I don't know how I do it, but like I'll try to figure out how to solve this particular problem. Let's say I'm part of the econ undergrad society and I need to make sure I can bring out outreach to individuals and I could keep the same resources to help them with like mental health or academic support or whatever it is. How can I still do the same goals but in the confines of my own home? And if I'm able to figure this out, or if I'm able to at least address and be adaptable, then in the time when I come into an interview, now I can then say this crazy experience where I'm saying, well, I was part of the pandemic era and this is what I did. And I think employees nowadays, they really focus on that. Like they don't care about exactly what you do, but it's more about how you do it, how you approach certain problems. And I wouldn't have learned that if it weren't for my leadership experiences. And I'm very thankful to be part of those things because they mold me to who I am today.
Yeah, so then kind of working backwards from there, obviously a lot of the people watching our panel today, they don't have the experiences that you had, or they don't have it yet. So what would be your advice for applying for that first AUS position or whatever the case may be?
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess it goes back to networking. So what we mentioned before in terms of the LinkedIn, it's completely fine to view someone else's profile. Let them know that you're viewing them because that the platform's there to invite them to ask questions, right? So I would totally slide in the DMs on LinkedIn or go into the websites and email and ask questions as much as possible because that's what they're part of, right? Like they want to be able to reach out to other people and support them the best they can. So I think really that's a really important piece of the network side of things. But I also think because it's a lot more challenging now because it's easier just to be self-isolated, staying in your room and minding your own business without participating. So I think surrounding yourself with a group of people that also want the same goals. So let's say for me, I really want to be able to learn about these different opportunities. That means I got to be proactive. I got to reach out to people, and I feel more motivated when other people are doing that with me. So if there are people that I met in my first year classes online or virtual or whatever it is, I would set up a call and let's see if we could like all 4 or 5 of us work on that same common goal together. And I don't think it's same. It might be off topic, but I will also use that for like taking classes as well, right? Like I think when you're in lectures and especially in the virtual lectures, it's so much harder to self-direct yourself. I find it easier when I'm in when back in my day, I usually like to study in study groups. It's just easier to digest material and be able to fully understand it. And so same thing applies with if you want to like apply for certain jobs. When you're doing that in a group, when you're studying as a group, that's also the same idea as well. But the pros of that is that you never know if your peers also have certain connections or other individuals that they know as well. And so it really is the idea of trying to put yourself out there and kind of laying your bait out into the ocean and see if anything could bite. And so the more you surround yourself with these individuals, the more likely they might know someone that they could connect you with. And if that connection doesn't work, well, chances are that person might have someone that they connect you with. And so it really is an ongoing process, and it's not just as simple as like finding that one individual. It's kind of like a chain of events that leads up to it. So it's a long-winded answer of saying you just got to message them, whether it's LinkedIn or whether it's email, whether it's phone calls. Obviously, now the circumstances, it's got to be virtual. So definitely take full advantage of that.
Yeah, oh, I definitely agree. I think, and Paige would agree too. Pretty much everybody in the Student Alumni Council or other programs that her and I have done, it's all through just a random, connection, right? Somebody you met in a class, somebody you met in the library. So I think, yeah, you can never have too many of those little interactions because you never know what it'll lead to. There's a really good question here in the questions section. How did you manage your time when doing so many of these activities and extracurriculars? And was it difficult to manage your schoolwork and exams when you were obviously pretty busy?
That's a great question, and I'm going to be very honest that during my first year I didn't manage it very well, and I think it was the fact that I was just such an ambitious student at the time. I definitely took a bit more than I can chew. Especially, so I think just to kind of go back, my first year I did 4 courses. I was working as a tutor for my private business, but I was working for another tutoring firm, and then I got involved with AUS. I was also commuting, and then I was also volunteering on Sundays, and so I had so many different things that were kind of coming onto my plate. And so obviously during my first 2 years, I was burnt out, absolutely burnt out. I wasn't pulling off all-nighters, but I was definitely sleeping pretty late. And I think for me, my academics took a bit of a hit for sure. I was definitely primarily focusing on my involvement with these different organizations. And so it came to my 3rd year where I had to make a decision as to what was important for me. And also the idea is that there's so much capacity that I can have. And so would I rather just give 50% on 10 gajillion different things, or would I rather give 100% to 2 things that I know I could do very, very well in? And so when it came to my 3rd year, that's when I said, okay, I just need to focus on the econ undergrad side. That was like a big part for me. My tutoring business, I just put that to the side and I said, you know what, in terms of what was the best value for me, at that time, tutoring wasn't it anymore. And then I also took, in terms of my my academics as well, I was just taking less courses because the way I treated my undergrad society, I treated it as a course as well. And so that was something that I definitely considered. And so for me in particular, I guess I was just kind of raised in this environment where, for me, the 5 is the new 4. Like I wasn't really pressured to cram all my courses and finish everything in 4 years. But obviously everyone has different upbringings, and they also have different needs, and some people have to graduate in 4 years. I was just lucky to drag out my education, and again, by dragging out my education, I was at least able to enhance it with all these different opportunities. So to circle back into how to best time manage, I guess some advice that I can give you right now in terms of how I time manage is that one, sleep is very important, and so that was one thing I emphasized. But now I shift my schedule a little bit earlier, so I'll actually wake up pretty early in the morning, and then I would have, it sounds really nerdy, but I'll have an Excel spreadsheet. I'll have different times, and then I'll highlight certain aspects as to what's of higher priority and what is of least priority. And then I also, this is a really cool thing that CSIC taught me. There's this particular chart, and it divides these quadrants into urgency and time. So the idea is that if you're able to figure out which of your tasks goes into these different buckets, you're then able to visualize which ones are super urgent that you have to get done, or which ones are not really that important and you can push that to the side. And then the idea is that we want to focus more on those that are important but not urgent. So those are the ones that are going to be like long-term projects that takes a bit of time, but you're also in that relaxed state where you don't have to feel the pressure of being so rushed to finish certain things. And so I found that to be very helpful because there's so many different demands with like courses or your undergraduate society or work or whatever it was. But for me to determine which ones are actually important, which one wasn't, that was a really good key in terms of managing my time. So I think one way to think about it is that everyone has a capacity. There's nothing to be ashamed about. And especially when you leave university, you get to the working field, it's really hard to finish everything all at once. And so it's about choosing your battles and understanding what needs to get done and what can be pushed off to tomorrow. And so because of that strategy that I've been taking in terms of like my Excel spreadsheets and visualizing my task and putting them into buckets, that's been able to help me prioritize my work and help me keep on moving forward. Even though maybe I may not have completed 100% of my task, at least I can leave and sleep in my bed knowing that I at least did something and I progressed in some other field.
So you briefly mentioned this, how when you were getting later into your undergrad, you started cutting things out and finding, what your priorities were. Do you have any recommendations for, how you go about saying no to when certain opportunities come up? And, did you ever feel like you were letting people down or anything?
So I might be a bad example because I always say yes to everything, and I think that's the reason why I was so burnt out, right? So I think my mentality was this: in my first year, I don't want to close any doors, and I want to expose myself to as much as I can, so that I will at least know what I like, what I don't like, and which opportunities I see myself grow in. And so naturally, that's why, and especially as a first year student, I was just so eager to get my hands dirty on anything that I could find. And that's why I was looking through different programs, messaging different people. And that's why I was stretching myself out very thin. But because of that experience, that's why I was able to determine what were opportunities that I saw value in and what were opportunities where I could just pass that along. And so I think it really is about evaluating yourself at the time. What are you really good at? What are things that you want to improve on, and how you can get to that particular point if you have that progressive growth mindset. And so with that in mind, that's when I started evaluating, okay, what's really important to me right now? Is it my education, like in terms of like passing my courses with high grades, or is it about gaining leadership experiences, or is it about work experience? And so every semester I kind of evaluate that and do the mental math in my head, and that's where I kind of shift my focus. And so while in my first semester at UBC, where I was literally putting emphasis on everything, by the time I got into my second year, first semester, I then thought, okay, my priority right now is getting work experience. So obviously I'm still going to try to do my best at school, but I'm going to be shifting more focus towards arts programs, or looking at applying for different jobs outside of UBC or that kind of stuff. And then if things don't work out, then I do that mental math again and I start evaluating, okay, I can't get the work experience now. What's the next and most important thing for me? Probably my leadership experience. I want to gain more exposure to that. So let's participate in all these different organizations. Let's see what I can do to impact that. Or if I'm in a situation where, let's say I'm part of an organization and I don't see myself bringing that much value, I'm just kind of a member, then in that case, okay, let me do the mental math again. Let's try to do really well in school, and so on and so forth. So it really is kind of like this refresh button that I mentally do to myself to evaluate what's important to me and what isn't, and that drives my decisions in terms of how I'm going to experience my semester for that year.
And then, so now looking back on it, you're a few years removed. Are there any experiences that you didn't get that you would really recommend first years try out?
I love that you asked that question. I love that. There's two things. So the one thing that I regretted, and I think this is bad taste to say because of our situation right now, was go global. I think going on exchange would have been absolutely a blast for me to go to another different country out on the other side of the world and learning about the culture, but also being in a completely different environment and learning as well. I think that would have been really fun, and I think that would have been a good stress reliever where I could kind of avoid and leave all the undergraduate societies to the side, and I could just do things for me. So I want to emphasize, like, do things for yourself. And I think looking back at my education experiences, I definitely did a lot towards preparing myself to get to the career that I am today. But I think if I wanted to talk to my future kids and talk about like my fun UBC experiences, I can't really say that because I didn't get to do Go Global. So that was something I wish I could do. I don't know when that's going to happen, especially with the pandemic or not. But I think the second thing I wanted to bring up, which I really wish I told my younger self about this, is there's so many opportunities at UBC, and there's not just one way to achieve something. So full disclosure, in the arts co-op program, I didn't complete it. I only got one co-op working term. And my perspective at the time was that I need to get this on my transcript. I need to let people know that I've completed the program. And when I didn't get another co-op opportunities, I stood still and I said, you know what, I can't get any more jobs anymore. I'm stuck. I got nothing else left. But I keep forgetting that, hey, there's arts internship program. There's work learn. I could talk to professors and see what kind of opportunities there are out there. And I believe there's also like UBC careers. They also post a couple of jobs as well. And I think if I wasn't so stubborn in my ways of just trying to go through one avenue, I could have gained all these different experiences earlier on, so that'll be just easier for me to be in a better position to get my job. Granted, I'm in now, but it wasn't a smooth road whatsoever. And I think one thing that I wish I could do better back in my first year was adaptability. Again, there's so many options out there, and rather than being so fixated on one thing or completing it, it's about the process and knowing that there's so many other ways to get there. And so rather than focusing on that finished product, like completing the co-op program, the process is I want work experience, and there's many different ways to get to that particular point that I want to figure out.
Yeah, no, I definitely see what you mean. One thing I think is really cool. So I started at UBC in 2017, and since then they've expanded funding a lot for work learn programs. So in anything you're interested in. So I'm interested in sports, right? So I'm doing a work learn with athletics and recreation. And so many people have been able to get these cool, like really, really unique opportunities. And now that there's more of those opportunities, I think that's awesome. So I'd really recommend anybody here should check those out. And you can look at the careers online for that. Another question I had a bit back, and I realized I missed it. So now again, you're in the real world. What about your arts degree is valuable?
Oh yeah. I would say your ability to comprehend and communicate. So what I mean by that is that I like to say that our arts degree is quite flexible. And what I mean by that is, in full disclosure, with my degree in econ, I don't use any of my theories. I don't draw graphs, and I don't go up to my boss and calculate CPIs or whatever it is. I don't do the technical stuff. But what I really value from my degree was the core skills of understanding how to value different things and how to prioritize it or how to maximize. And so with the econ degree, I'm not using all these like econ terms. What it is, I'm taking these transferable skills and I'm applying to any kind of industry that's out there. And so what I think that's the really cool part about the arts degree is that it is such a tangible degree that can be applied in any kind of industry. So whether you have like a sociology background or whether you have a background in English or whatever it is, we're able to communicate in a way where we can see and we can evaluate and we could come up with these ideas or examples of how what we learn in these broad concepts of our subject matter and how that can be applied to any kind of industry that's out there. And so I think especially when if I'm putting on my hiring hat and I'm looking at different individuals, I don't really focus more on the subject matter that they're studying in particular. It really is more about like their ability to apply and think things in an abstract form and being able to kind of communicate all of that. And so that's why I find arts degree to be quite useful, especially because of the fact that it's such a I want to say quote unquote flexible degree.
So my next question from the audience is just about how did you get involved socially in terms of friends and making connections with professors? And then any advice for first years who are dealing with COVID isolation, they might not be on campus or whatever the case is?
Yeah, so just speaking on my own experiences, it was just as easy as going to a big lecture hall, sitting beside someone completely random, and then introducing myself. So that was just, especially in your first year, you're kind of like you're hitting the reset button in terms of your social hierarchy. So no one knows you whatsoever, so you can just do whatever you want and just kind of set the bar from there. So that was an easier way of doing it back in the day, where you just reach out to someone, whoever is sitting beside you, because everyone's all on the same playing field, right? Um, Obviously, that's not the case now, especially with the COVID side of things. So I think if I was to try to emulate that in the virtual setting, I don't know how the setting is like in terms of your virtual classes, whether you're sitting virtually beside someone, but I would definitely, I think I'm the type of person where I would go on these chats and try to like form a group and see if anybody wants to form study groups and whatnot. But I think it's kind of like the same mechanism as LinkedIn, right? It's just looking at the list of your class members and just reaching out to them and seeing. And again, we're all in the same boat, right? Like I like to think that as first years we don't know as many people as what we did before, and so it's so I think for you to step out of your comfort zone and reach out to someone is something that could be very, very helpful. And me personally, in terms of reaching out to professors, I was definitely quite nervous when I was in my first couple of years, and so I didn't reach out to professors as much as I can. I definitely do so when I have questions. So I think obviously if you're going through lectures and you have a lot of questions, be sure to ask them about that. But if it's about a field that you're really interested in, and this professor does like really cool research on certain subject matters that are of interest to you. Same thing with LinkedIn, right? Send them an email, say, hey, thank you for the lecture. I know that you specialize in this. Let's talk about it more. They're gonna feel really giddy about it, and then who knows what kind of conversation will lead up to that afterwards. So especially with your online platforms, you just gotta slide in the DMs. I think that's my key message right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, I think, well, I mean, as you said, people love to talk about themselves, right? And profs are no different. So once you get them started, you'll do well from there. And I guess to your other point about students and classes, I've noticed like what's really been eye-opening to me is a lot of AMS clubs and undergrad societies, they've really adapted so well, so they'll have these like online movie nights or online hangouts or games nights or whatever it is. So
Mm.
same thing for anybody here. I'd really recommend checking that out. I think Paige has a question. She still has audio.
Hi, everyone. Apologies for my internet connection problems. My video had seemed to disappear, yet I am still here in audio. So I have a couple questions for you, Forrest. Just centralizing around your current workplace environment. Since we've gone backwards, I would like to kind of ask the questions about going forward. So I think the first question that I'd like to ask are like, what excites you about the projects you take on now? Like what skills or what have you learned in your degree so far that has really helped you employ and work well in your environment right now? And how does that excite you for the projects you take on or you're given in your workplace?
Sorry, just so I'm understanding the question clearly is about what are skills that I learned from my degree that applies to the exciting project I'm doing now, or sorry, I may have butchered the entire question.
No, it's all good. No, so I guess the main question would be what excites you about the projects you take on now? And are there any skills that have helped you take on those projects that make you excited about taking them on that you've learned in university?
Okay. I would say, yeah, so I think so the nature of my work is we work under consulting, and so we work with a whole bunch of human resource teams and help them provide them with financial advice so that they're able to achieve their goals, whether it's supporting employees' mental health or whether it's to save costs or all of those kind of sorts. And so it's quite a technical kind of job where it requires me to learn about insurance jargon and our tools, and keeping up with different consulting personalities. And so it's hard to pinpoint exciting projects that I get to work on, but I mean, I think there are two things. So I'll talk about the specific one and the general one. So the specific one that I get to work on is I'm pretty much known as the model guy. And so all my team members, they let me manage these big models where we're churning out numbers for like thousands of organizations at the same time, which is really cool to do. It's kind of like as an actuary, you're predicting the future. So I'm predicting the future for hundreds of organizations at a click of the button, which is really awesome to figure out. And the second thing is, especially as an art student, where I love to communicate and I like to take abstract concepts and things that are complicated and explain it in layman terms or to paint a story. I get a lot of those kind of opportunities where I get to present in front of clients and I get to provide my particular insights as well, which is quite strange to see for an organization to give me that opportunity, especially with someone that has zero experience in the insurance industry. But I think what got me, the reason why I get excited from these projects is because there's such a direct correlation in terms of how I handle my work at UBC and how that's being applied here. And so those opportunities comes from the fact that I got a lot of these problem-solving experiences from my econ undergrad society. And so for someone who had the responsibility of running a student body and trying to restructure the governance so that we're able to address much more than just events and parties. For example, like academic support or representations of art students and having their voices heard, to resources within our own building and trying to ensure that everyone's feeling welcome. Like there's so many of these different facets that I had to think about. And so that required that kind of responsibility and having this unknown and trying to paint your way into a solution. That's essentially how I'm addressing kind of my work today. So the way I'm coming into the office is always a new problem every single day. There's always different challenges. And to, I don't know, for better or for worse, the way my consultants deal with it is they give me this problem and say, hey, here you go, figure it out. And I believe I wouldn't have survived this kind of working style if it weren't for me jumping out of my comfort zone and taking on those opportunities, working in co-op and doing this econ work, because that taught me that nothing is structured. There's so much gray in terms of the things we do. And it really is about interpretation and how you provide evidence to support your stance in something. And I think that's what I really learned about arts is like there's really isn't that it's not as black or white. Even math too. Like there's a lot of grayness that comes into it, and there's this artistic side of things to explain something. And so that mindset that I had, where it wasn't this A to Z kind of structure, it's really more of this big canvas, and I'm trying to paint as much as I can. That kind of challenge excites me. That kind of grinds my gears, and that's how I've been approaching my work, where while some people thrive in following a rule book, based on my experiences, I like to kind of go with the flow, and I think that's what's making me stand out from the rest of my colleagues as well. So it's a long-winded answer, but I definitely got to say, like, the Econ Undergrad Society, my involvement with the CSINC, like, they definitely helped me to be in a part of a working environment where it's always consistently changing, and that's something that I really appreciate.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because I was doing AUS for my first 2 years at UBC, and it was awesome, just like all the random problems you'd get and trying to figure that out. So Paige, off to you.
Yeah, I just also wanted to message, I also was in the AUS as well, and it was done in my first year too. Likewise to the both of you. And I found that for those who are wanting to get involved with their undergraduate societies, it really does help you spearhead leadership opportunities for the rest of university, as both of them have mentioned before, and Forrest and Jerome. You really get tactful skills that you can use for the rest of your undergraduate and then professional degree as well. So if any of you are looking for opportunities to get involved at UBC. There are so many opportunities within the undergraduate societies. If you want to be super involved to not as involved, I highly recommend taking part, because as you can see from the three of us, neither of us regret being involved, especially in our undergraduate societies. So if you want to focus on one part to get involved, I highly recommend. All the undergraduate societies have great programs. So before we finish today, I would like to give Forrest the last word. So I have one final question for you. What is the most important takeaway that you'd like the audience to leave with today?
Yeah, so I think it's so those two things, and I'm going to be a broken record for the first point. So again, the adaptability piece, and it's very crucial now more than ever for us to be able to roll with the punches and come up with different solutions given the constraints that we're provided with. And I think that's to kind of highlight the point about knowing that there's more than one way to achieve a common goal. So for me, my path was definitely not linear. For me to get to where I am today, there was a lot of bumps on the road, and it wasn't handed to me whatsoever. I really had to kind of regroup and reevaluate every step of the way in terms of like if this is what I want to do, if I'm achieving the goals that I want to achieve, or if I'm doing the right things that I have to take. And so rather than having this tunnel vision of saying, okay, I need to get to the arts core program and I need to complete it. I need to do this, and this in order to get to where I'm at. If I reflect back into how I got to where I'm at today, I would be quite surprised, because I never expected that these are the opportunities that I would take to get to where I am today. And so I think especially during the pandemic era, where these facilities are not as accessible and it's not as easy to reach out and network or expand your connections and whatnot, rather than looking at it in defeat, is really taking it as a challenge and putting your feet back up and saying, okay, so here are my constraints. How am I going to figure this way out? And regardless of whether you get an outcome or not, I think the process of thinking about these kind of solutions and putting that into action speaks highly in volume in terms of one's character, in terms of someone who's hardworking, or someone's ability to problem solve. And so I really emphasize on that. And that's something that I wish I did a lot earlier in my first year, to be adaptable. So I think that's the one thing. But the second thing I also want to emphasize is that you're not alone. Whether you're dreading these virtual classes, or whether you're swamped in books, or whether you're trying to apply for jobs and you're not getting those kind of opportunities, we're all in this together. Like, we're all going through this pandemic, and we're all going through this mentally challenging times as well, just feeling isolated on top of that. And so to get yourself out of the funk, well, for me in particular, I wish I got to reach out to a lot more people, and that can still be done. We have Zoom meetings for a reason. We could do Facebook chats, or I don't know if people message on TikTok or whatever it is, but there's different avenues that you can take to remind yourself that there is a community out there that wants to achieve the same goals that you want to achieve, and surrounding yourselves with that as much as possible is really motivating and inspirational. So if you're going through the funk, it's okay. I'm going through the funk as well, and I'm going through that with you. And just know that there's a whole community behind your back to support you up.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the community at UBC is really, it's there for people, and there's so many great resources. So yeah, if I could go back to first year, I'd definitely make use of all the resources. Yeah, so just to wrap it up for our students in the audience, we're going to continue these alumni office hours throughout the year. I really enjoyed doing this. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. So we'll have a lot more in second semester. In the meantime, I encourage you to visit Careers Online, the hub of 10,000 coffees. Go find me on there, as well as the UBC events calendar. There's a lot of interesting programs going on, especially from CSI&C. So yeah, thanks again, Forrest. I thought your experiences and your thoughts were really interesting for all of us. And of course, big thanks to everybody here for coming to today's alumni office hours. And everyone, hope you stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll all as Forrest said, we'll all get through it together.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, everyone, and hope you all have a good night.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening in.